The red dust of Kepler 442b swirled around Dr. Amanda Foster's boots as she walked toward the massive stone structure that had taken her team 3 months to uncover. The dead planet's thin atmosphere made every breath a struggle, even with the breathing mask covering half her face. Above her, the pale yellow sun cast long shadows across the alien ruins that stretched further than anyone had expected. Amanda stopped at the entrance too. What her team called the temple. The carved symbols on the doorway were unlike anything. In the Galactic database, they seemed to shift and flow when she looked at them, as if the stone itself was alive. She had spent 15 years studying dead civilizations across the galaxy, but nothing had prepared her for this place. Dr. Foster, you need to see this. Kevin Walsh's voice crackled through her comm device. The linguist sounded excited, which was unusual for him. Kevin rarely got excited about anything. Amanda made her way through the temple's winding corridors. Her footsteps echoed off the smooth walls that were covered in more of the strange writing. Emergency lights cast eerie shadows as she descended deeper into the structure. The temperature dropped as she went lower. She pulled her jacket tighter around her shoulders. She found Kevin in what they had started calling the archive chamber. The room was enormous, with a domed ceiling that disappeared into darkness. In the center stood a crystal formation that was taller than 3 people. The crystal pulsed with a soft blue light that seemed to come from deep within. "What did you find?" Amanda asked as she approached. Kevin stood before a section of wall, covered in symbols. His translation device was working overtime, beeping and flashing as it tried to make sense of the alien text. "These aren't just random markings," he said, without looking away from the wall. "This is history, a real history of events that happened across the galaxy." Captain Lisa Grant, their military escort, stood nearby, with her hand resting on her weapon. She never relaxed, not even in a place that had been dead for thousands of years. "History of what exactly?" she asked. Kevin turned to face them, and Amanda could see the excitement in his eyes. "Everything. The rise and fall of the Altarian Empire. The Great War between the Silicon Architects and the gas giants of Proxima. The mysterious disappearance of the Voidwalkers. It's all here, written in perfect detail." Pete Johnson looked. Up from the scanning equipment he had been setting up near the crystal, engineer was covered in dust from crawling around the base of the formation. "That's impossible. Some of those events happened over 50,000 years ago. Who could have known about all of them?" "The Zephyrians," Kevin said. "That's what they called themselves. This was their world before it died. They weren't just recording history." He paused and looked back at the wall. They were recording prophecies, things that were going to happen. Amanda felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air. Prophecies. Kevin nodded and pointed to different sections of the wall. "Look at this. They predicted the fall of the Crystalline Empire 300 years before it happened. They wrote about the birth of the Hive Collective before the first insect people ever left their homeworld. Every single prediction has come true." Lisa stepped closer, her soldier instincts making her suspicious. "How do we know these weren't written after the events happened? Maybe someone came here later and added this stuff." Pete held up his scanner. "The writing is definitely original to the stone, same age as the rest of the temple. And the crystal formation shows signs of being here for at least 40,000 years." Amanda studied the symbols on the wall, even without Kevin's translation. Devise, she could sense something important about this place. The air felt heavy with secrets that had been waiting to be discovered. "What else do the prophecies say?" Kevin's expression grew serious. Pointed to a section of wall near the crystal where the symbols seemed more complex than the others. "There's one prophecy that's different from the rest. It talks about the end of everything. A darkness that will come from beyond the galaxy and consume all life." "Cheerful," Lisa muttered. "But that's not the strange part," Kevin continued. "The prophecy says that when this darkness comes, salvation will arrive from an unlikely source. A young species from the third world of a yellow star." Amanda looked up at the ceiling, thinking about the pale sun they had seen outside. "A yellow star like this one?" "No," Kevin said quietly. "Like Sol, like Earth's sun." The silence in the chamber was complete, except for the soft humming of their equipment. Amanda felt her heart start to beat faster. "What exactly does it say?" "About this species, Kevin turned back to the wall and began reading from his translation device. They will be the last to join the galactic community, but the first to stand against the consuming dark. They will be called by their own tongue, humanity. In their hands lies the fate of all stars. Pete dropped his scanner. The device clattered against the stone floor, the sound echoing through the chamber. "That's us," he whispered. "They're talking. About us." Lisa stepped forward, her training taking over. "We need to report this immediately. Command needs to know about this prophecy." "Wait," Amanda said, holding up her hand. "Kevin, is there more?" The linguist nodded and continued reading. "The children of Terra carry within them the spark of creation and destruction. They will unite what was divided and heal what was broken. But beware, for their path is marked by fire, and their choices will echo across eternity." Amanda stared at the crystal formation, watching the blue light pulse in steady rhythm. Somewhere in the depths of space, Earth continued its journey around the sun, unaware that an ancient alien race had written about humanity's destiny tens of thousands of years ago. "There's something else," Kevin said softly. "The final line of the prophecy." "What does it say?" Amanda asked. Kevin's voice was barely above a whisper. "The darkness stirs. The ancient enemy wakes. The time of choosing draws near." The crystals. Light flickered, and for a moment, Amanda could have sworn she heard something in the silence. A sound like whispers from across the galaxy, speaking a single word over and over again. Humanity. The news traveled faster than light across the galaxy. Within days of Dr. Amanda Foster's discovery, every major government and alien empire knew about the ancient prophecy. In the halls of power on 100 different worlds, leaders whispered the same question: what did it mean for humanity to be chosen? On Andromeda Station, the massive space structure that served as the headquarters for the Galactic Council, urgency meetings had been going on for 3 straight days. The station floated in the neutral zone between 12 different star systems, its gleaming metal surface reflecting the light of distant suns. Chancellor Vex of the Altarian Empire stood before the main council chamber. His tall, thin body was covered in the traditional blue robes of his people, and his large golden eyes showed the worry that all council members felt. Around the circular table sat representatives from across the galaxy. Ambassador Krill of the Insectoid Hive Collective clicked his mandibles nervously. His race had built their civilization on perfect order and predictable outcomes. The prophecy spoke of chaos and change, things that made the Hive Collective deeply uncomfortable. Next to him sat Diplomat Thresh of the Silicon-based Architects, her crystal body reflecting the chamber's lights and patterns that showed her agitation. At the far end of the table, Ambassador Julie Martinez represented Earth and humanity. She was a small woman compared to most of the other representatives, but she sat straight in her chair and met every alien gaze without flinching. She had been fighting for humanity's rights in the Galactic Council for 5 years, and this was the biggest challenge she had ever faced. "The prophecy must be examined carefully," Chancellor Vex said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had ruled for over 2 centuries. The Zephyrians were known for their accuracy in predicting galactic events. If they say humanity will determine the fate of all stars, we must take this seriously. Ambassador Krill's voice buzzed as he spoke. "The humans are barely 400 years into space travel. They have primitive technology and violent tendencies. How can they possibly be the key to galactic salvation?" Form glowed brighter as she added her thoughts. "Our analysis of human behavior shows they are unpredictable. They fight among themselves constantly, expand aggressively into new territories. They show little respect for established order." Julie Martinez felt her temper rising, but she kept her voice calm and professional, with respect honored. "Representatives, humanity has also shown remarkable abilities. We adapt quickly to new situations. We form alliances with species very different from ourselves. We never give up when fighting for what we believe in." "That is exactly what concerns us," Chancellor Vex replied. "Your species' refusal to surrender, combined with your rapid technological advancement, makes you dangerous. The prophecy could be warning us about you, not promising salvation through you." Julie looked around the table at faces that ranged from worried to openly hostile. She realized that the prophecy, instead of elevating humanity's status, had made them more feared than ever. Are you suggesting that the Galactic Council sees humanity as a threat? Before Chancellor Vex could answer, the chamber's communication system activated. A hologram appeared showing Captain Ryan O'Connor of the Earth Defense Force vessel New Horizon. His military uniform was crisp, and his expression was grim. Ambassador Martinez, he said, I apologize for interrupting, but we have urgent intelligence. That affects this discussion. Julie nodded. Go ahead, Captain. Ryan's image flickered as the long-distance transmission struggled to maintain clarity. Our intelligence networks have detected secret communications between several Galactic Council member species. They are discussing what they call the human problem and considering military action to prevent the prophecy from coming true. Chamber erupted in angry voices as different representatives began shouting in their native languages. Hush! Chancellor Vex raised his hand for silence, but it took several minutes before order was restored. These accusations are serious, Chancellor Vex said. Captain O'Connor, what evidence do you have? Ryan's expression hardened. We intercepted communications between Altarian military commanders and Hive Collective war leaders. They are discussing a preemptive strike against Earth and human colonies to prevent what they see as an inevitable threat to galactic stability. Ambassador Krill's mandibles clicked rapidly. The Hive Collective has made no such plans. We are a peaceful people who only seek to protect our colonies. Peaceful people don't discuss orbital bombardment tactics, Ryan replied coldly. We have recordings of your war leaders planning attack patterns against human settlements. Thresh's crystal body pulsed with angry red light. The Silicon architects will not be accused of warmongering. We have always sought diplomatic solutions. Then explain why your construction fleets have been building military stations along human trade routes, Ryan said. Our scouts have counted 17 new battle platforms in the last month alone. Julie Martinez stood up, her voice carrying across the chamber. Honored representatives, I came here today prepared to discuss how humanity could work with the Galactic Council to face whatever threat the prophecy warns about. Instead, I find that some of you have already decided we are the threat. Chancellor Vex's golden eyes studied Julie carefully. Ambassador Martinez, you must understand our position. The prophecy speaks of fire and destruction. Your species has a history of both. Cannot ignore the possibility that the Zephyrians were warning us about humanity, not promising that you would save us. Julie felt the weight of her species, future pressing down on her shoulders. Every word she spoke now could determine whether humanity would be welcomed as allies or hunted as enemies. Chancellor Vex, the prophecy also speaks of unity and healing. It says humanity will unite what was divided. How can we do that if you divide the galaxy by declaring war on us? The chamber fell silent as everyone considered her words. Finally, Ambassador Krill spoke in his buzzing voice. What do you propose, human? Julie took a deep breath. Give us a chance to prove the prophecy speaks of hope, not destruction. The Zephyrians wrote about an approaching darkness. Instead of fighting each other, we should be preparing to face that darkness together. Diplomat Thresh's crystal form dimmed to a thoughtful blue. And if you are wrong, if humanity becomes the threat the prophecy warns about, then you will have the combined forces of the galaxy to stop us, Julie replied. But if we are right, if humanity is meant to help save everyone, then attacking us now could doom every species in the galaxy. Chancellor Vex leaned back in his chair, his ancient mind weighing options that could affect billions of lives. In the silence, everyone could hear the soft hum of the station's life support systems, keeping them all alive in the cold darkness of space. Outside the station's windows, the stars continued their eternal dance, unaware that the fate of the galaxy was being decided in a room full of scared and suspicious beings who all claimed to want peace. The prophecy had spoken one name: humanity. Now the question was whether that name would become a blessing or a curse for every living thing among the stars. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison stared out the viewport of his ship, the Pioneer, at something that should not exist.
Ow.
The reconnaissance vessel floated at the edge of the galaxy, where empty space stretched forever into darkness. But the darkness was moving. Sandra, are you seeing this? Jake asked his pilot, Sandra Rivera, sat at the controls with her hands frozen over the flight panel. Sandra's voice was barely a whisper. Commander, the sensors are going crazy, whatever that is. It's bigger than anything in our database. Dr. Carl Baker, the Pioneer's science officer, worked frantically at his station. Numbers and graphs flashed across multiple screens as he tried to make sense of what they were witnessing. Commander, I'm reading massive energy signatures. Size of these objects. Some of them are larger than moons. Jake watched as shapes emerged from the void between galaxies. They were not ships in any sense he understood. These were structures that defied description, made of materials that seemed to absorb light itself. They moved with purpose through space, consuming everything in their path. Get me a full sensor sweep, Jake ordered. Want to know everything about these things. As the Pioneer's sensors reached out, the true horror became clear. The massive structures were not alone. Thousands of smaller machines accompanied them, each one the size of a city. They moved in perfect formation, stripping entire solar systems of matter and energy. My God, Carl breathed as data flooded his screens. They're not just destroying planets, they're taking everything. Matter, energy, even the space between atoms. It's like they're erasing existence itself. Sandra's hands shook as she prepared the ship's faster-than-light drive. Commander, we need to get this information back to command. People need to know what's coming. But before Jake could give the order to retreat, the sensors detected something else. One of the smaller machines had changed course and was heading directly toward them. How did it see us? Sandra asked in panic. We're running silent. All stealth systems are active. Carl's face went pale as he studied his readings. It's not detecting our ship. It's detecting something else. Something about us specifically. The alien machine approached with terrifying speed. As it drew closer, they could see its surface was covered in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The patterns seemed to move and shift, creating geometric shapes that made no sense to human eyes. Launching scanning beam, Carl reported. Maybe we can learn something about their technology. The moment the Pioneer's scanners touched the alien machine, every system on the ship screamed warnings. The alien device responded by sending its own scanning beam back at them. But this was unlike any sensor beam they had ever encountered. Jake felt something cold touch his mind. Images flashed through his thoughts that were not his own. He saw the birth and death of countless civilizations, witnessed entire galaxies being consumed by the same machines that now approached their own. He felt the despair of billions of beings as their worlds were stripped away, piece by piece. Break contact, Jake shouted, but it was too late. The alien machine had learned everything it needed to know. It turned away from the Pioneer and began transmitting to the massive structures in the distance. The transmission lasted only seconds, but Jake knew. It contained information about their galaxy, their defenses, and most importantly, about humanity. Sandra, get us out of here now, Jake ordered. The Pioneer jumped to faster-than-light speed just as more machines began moving in their direction. As they fled toward human space, Jake realized they had made a terrible mistake. They had not just discovered the enemy. They had announced their presence to something that had been searching for them. 3 days later, the first reports came. In New Seattle colony on Kepler 438b had gone silent. The last transmission from the colony had been a panicked message about strange lights in the sky. When rescue ships arrived, they found nothing but empty space, where a planet had once orbited its star. Dr. Amanda Foster was back on Earth, working in the underground laboratory where the crystal from the Zephyrian Temple had been brought for study. She had been examining the prophecies for weeks, trying to understand what the approaching darkness really meant. Now she knew. The Void Hunters, she said to Kevin Walsh, who stood beside her reading from the translated prophecies. That's what the Zephyrians called them. Kevin nodded grimly. According to this, they've been dormant for over 50,000 years. Something about a barrier that kept them away from our galaxy? A barrier that's failing, Amanda said, pointing to a section of text that glowed faintly on the crystal's surface. The Zephyrians knew this would happen. They knew the Void Hunters would return. Reports continued to flood in from across the galaxy. The Altarian research station at Proxima 7 had vanished without a trace, a Hive collective mining operation. And the Vega system had simply disappeared, leaving behind empty space where asteroids had been harvested for centuries. On Earth, President Janet Clark convened an emergency meeting with her top advisors. Defense Secretary Mike Rodriguez spread star charts across the conference table, each one marked with red zones where alien attacks had occurred. "The pattern is clear," Mike said. "They're not attacking randomly. They're targeting resource-rich systems and advanced civilizations first. They want to eliminate our ability to fight back before moving deeper into the galaxy." President Clark studied the charts with growing concern. "How long do we have?" "At their current rate of advancement, maybe 6 months before they reach the core systems," Mike replied. "Maybe less if they speed up their attacks." The meeting was interrupted by a priority communication from the Galactic Council. Chancellor Vex appeared on the main screen, his golden eyes filled with fear that he could no longer hide. "President Clark," he said, "we need to talk. The Void Hunters have begun their assaults on our galaxy. The old arguments about humanity and the prophecy no longer matter. We must unite against this threat, or we will all die separately." President Clark looked at the faces of her advisors, seeing the same thought in all their eyes. The prophecy had spoken of humanity uniting what was divided. The time had come to prove whether those ancient words were truth or just the desperate hope of a dying race. "Chancellor Vex," she said, "humanity is ready to stand with the Galactic Council against this enemy. But we fight as equals, not as subjects." On the crystal in Amanda's laboratory, new text began to glow. Kevin leaned forward to read the words that had remained hidden until this moment. "When the Void Hunters wake, all divisions must end. Only unity can stand against the consuming dark. The children of Terra must lead, for they alone remember how to hope when all hope is lost." Outside, in the cold space between stars, the Void Hunters continued their advance. They had found a galaxy full of life and technology, ripe for harvest. But they had also found something unexpected. They had found humanity, and humanity was preparing to fight back. Engineer Tanya Brooks knelt beside the twisted metal remains of a Void Hunter scout ship that had crashed on the mining planet. Titan 7. The black material felt cold even through her protective gloves, and looking at it too long made her eyes water. But she needed to understand how it worked if humanity was going to survive. "Be careful with that stuff," Captain Maria Santos warned from nearby. The military officer kept her weapon ready as she watched Tanya work. "We lost 3 scientists. On Kepler 9, when they tried to study similar fragments, the metal just ... ate them." Tanya nodded but continued her examination. Around them, the emergency research camp buzzed with activity. Human scientists worked alongside alien researchers, sharing data about the Void Hunters for the first time in galactic history. The threat had made former enemies into desperate allies. "I think I understand how their shields work," Tanya said, as she connected her scanner to the alien metal. "They don't just block energy attacks. They absorb them and convert the energy into fuel. The more you shoot at them, the stronger they get." Dr. Ben Cooper looked up from his own workstation where he was studying crystal fragments from the Zephyrian temple that matches what Amanda found in the prophecies. The Zephyrians wrote about weapons that fed on conflict itself. News arrived hourly of new Void Hunter attacks. Entire star systems went dark as the mechanical entities consumed everything in their path. The Altarian home world had been evacuated just hours before the attackers arrived. The Hive Collective had lost half their colonies in 3 days, but humanity's response was different from other species. While aliens retreated or tried to negotiate, humans adapted and fought back with a fury that surprised everyone. General Frank Murphy coordinated the defense from the command center on Earth's moon. Multiple screens showed battle reports from across human space. His staff worked around the clock, developing new tactics faster than any military in galactic history. "The Void Hunters expect us to fight like other species." Frank explained to the Joint Military Council that included alien commanders. They're programmed to counter energy weapons, defensive shields, and organized fleet movements. But they're not ready for guerrilla warfare. Commander Jake Morrison, recently promoted after his reconnaissance mission, nodded in agreement. "Our hit-and-run attacks have been more effective than anything the other species tried. We strike fast, cause damage, and disappear before they can respond. The alien commanders looked uncomfortable with human tactics. Ambassador Krill clicked, his mandibles nervously. The Hive Collective prefers organized, coordinated attacks. Your methods seem ... chaotic. Chaos is what we do best, General Murphy replied, with a grim smile. The Void Hunters are machines. They think in patterns and predictable responses. Humans are very good at being unpredictable. Meanwhile, in her laboratory, Dr. Amanda Foster made a discovery that changed everything. She was working with the Zephyrian crystal when new text appeared, glowing brighter than ever before. Kevin, look at this, she called to her colleague. The crystal is responding to the Void Hunter attacks. It's showing us something new. Kevin Walsh hurried over and began translating the fresh symbols. It says the Zephyrians didn't just predict the Void Hunter's return, they prepared for it. His voice grew excited as he read further. Amanda, they left us weapons, instructions for technology that can actually hurt these things. The breakthrough came when Tanya Brooks combined her study of Void Hunter materials with the new Zephyrian technology, working in the underground labs of the research station. She developed a weapon system that used the aliens' own absorption abilities against them. Instead of trying to overload their shields with energy, she explained to the gathered scientists and military officers, we feed them energy that's been altered at the quantum level. The energy looks normal to their systems, but once absorbed, it creates a cascade reaction that tears apart their molecular structure. Captain Maria Santos was the first to test the new weapons in her ship, the Defiance. The experimental cruiser was equipped with Tanya's quantum pulse cannons and new shield generators based on Zephyrian technology. The battle took place in the asteroid belt near Proxima Centauri, where a Void Hunter harvester was consuming mining stations. Maria's ship dropped out of faster-than-light speed directly above the enemy vessel. All weapons target the harvester's core, Maria ordered. Let's see if humanity's new toys work. The quantum pulse cannons fired, sending streams of altered energy into the Void Hunter's ship. For a moment, nothing happened. The harvester continued its work, seemingly unaffected by the attack. Then the cascade reaction began. The Void Hunter's hull started to come apart at the molecular level. What had been solid metal became a cloud of expanding particles. The massive harvester, which had been the size of a small moon, simply ceased to exist. It worked, Maria breathed, hardly believing what she had witnessed. We actually killed one of them. News of the victory spread quickly through human space and beyond. For the first time since the Void Hunters had appeared, a species had successfully destroyed one of their ships. Hope began to replace fear in the hearts of billions of beings across the galaxy. But Dr. Ben Cooper's research revealed an even more important discovery. Working with Amanda Foster, he had decoded the final sections of the Zephyrian prophecies. The Zephyrians didn't just leave us weapons, Ben explained to the emergency council meeting.
Oh.
They left us a battle plan. They knew exactly how this war would unfold. Amanda nodded, reading from the crystal's glowing text. According to this, the Zephyrians have been guiding human evolution for thousands of years. They introduced genetic modifications through asteroid impacts on ancient Earth. They literally designed us to fight the Void Hunters. President Janet Clark leaned forward in her chair. What kind of modifications? Enhanced adaptability, rapid learning abilities, and something the Zephyrians call synthesis capability, Amanda replied. Humans can take knowledge and technology from multiple sources and combine them in ways that no other species can imagine. The proof of this ability was all around them. Human engineers had combined Void Hunter materials with Zephyrian technology to create weapons that neither civilization could have built alone. Human tacticians had developed strategies that mixed alien military doctrines with uniquely human approaches to warfare. General Frank Murphy stood before the holographic display, showing the current battle zones. The Zephyrians were right about one thing. We're not winning this war through superior technology or numbers. We're winning because we can adapt faster than the Void Hunters can evolve. Outside the conference room windows, Earth's sky was filled with ships from a dozen different species. Altarian energy cruisers flew alongside human destroyers. Hive collective carriers coordinated with Silicon Architect construction vessels. For the first time in galactic history, all the major civilizations were working together. Captain Maria Santos prepared for her next mission, leading a combined fleet against the Void Hunter forces advancing toward the galactic core. Her ship's crew included humans, aliens, and hybrid technology that represented the best of all species. The prophecy said humanity would unite what was divided, she said to her officers. Looks like we're finally doing our job. The war was far from over, but something had changed. The Void Hunters faced an enemy they had never encountered before, a galaxy that had learned to fight as one, led by a species that refused to accept defeat. Humanity had found its purpose among the stars, and the ancient prophecy was beginning to come true. Admiral Tony Richards stood on the bridge of the massive carrier Liberty as it led the largest fleet in galactic history toward the core of the galaxy. Round his ship flew vessels from every known civilization, their different designs creating a strange but beautiful formation against the stars. Human destroyers moved alongside Altarian energy cruisers while Hive collective carriers coordinated with Silicon Architect construction ships. Admiral, we're receiving final position reports from all fleet groups, reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Susan Hayes. 2,000 ships are in formation and ready for battle. Tony nodded, but his eyes remained fixed on the tactical display showing what waited for them ahead. The Void Hunters had gathered their main force around the galactic core, where the ancient supermassive black hole provided them with unlimited energy to harvest. If they succeeded in consuming the core region, they would have enough power to devour the entire galaxy in weeks. Any word from Commander Brooks? Tony asked. The Valkyrie is in position with the stealth squadron, Susan replied. Diana confirms. She's ready to make the temple run when you give the order. Tony felt pride and fear battle in his chest. His daughter Diana was piloting the most dangerous mission of the war, carrying the activation device that Dr. Amanda Foster had developed. From the Zephyrian crystal technology, if Diana failed to reach the final temple, everything they had fought for would be lost. Captain Maria Santos appeared on the communication screen from her position commanding the forward assault group. Admiral, the Void Hunters are moving too. Intercept us. Their main fleet is 3 times larger than our projections indicated. Through the viewport, Tony could see them now. The Void Hunter fleet filled space like a swarm of mechanical locusts, each ship larger than anything the galaxy had ever built. Their dark holes absorbed light itself, creating holes in the starfield that hurt to look at directly. All ships. This is Admiral Richards, Tony announced over the fleet communication system. Today we fight not just for our own species, but for every living thing in the galaxy. The ancient prophecy brought us together for this moment. Let's show the universe what unity can accomplish. The battle began with a thunderous exchange of weapons fire that lit up space for millions of kilometers. Human quantum pulse cannons struck Void Hunter shields while Altarian energy beams carved through their holes. The Hive Collective's coordinated swarm attacks confused the mechanical entity's targeting systems, and Silicon Architect repair ships kept damaged vessels fighting when they should have been destroyed. But the Void Hunters adapted quickly. Their ships began combining into larger formations, creating super vessels that dwarfed even the biggest ships in the Allied fleet. Worse, they started using new weapons that seemed to drain the life force from living beings, leaving entire ship crews dead without damaging their vessels. Admiral, we're losing ships faster than projected, reported Captain Maria as her destroyer barely escaped from a Void Hunter dreadnought. Their adaptation rate is incredible. They're countering our new tactics within minutes. Tony watched the battle reports flow across his screens. The Allied fleet was brave and determined, but they were fighting an enemy that learned from every attack and grew stronger with each passing moment. Traditional warfare would not win this battle. Susan. Get me Dr. Foster, Tony ordered. Amanda Foster's face appeared on the main screen. She was aboard the research vessel that stayed safely behind the battle lines, but her expression showed the strain of watching the fleet struggle against impossible odds. Admiral, the temples are responding to the battle, Amanda reported. Zephyrian technology is activating across the galaxy. But we need someone to reach the core temple and complete the activation sequence manually. Diana is already en route, Tony replied. but she needs more time to get through their defenses. Amanda nodded. The prophecy mentions one final element we haven't used yet. Zephyrians wrote about humanity's greatest strength, something they called the synthesis of hope. I think I understand what they meant. As the battle raged around them, Tony made a decision that went against every military rule he had ever learned. Instead of concentrating his forces for maximum firepower, he spread the fleet out across the entire battle zone. Human ships began, working directly with alien vessels, not just in coordination, but in actual synthesis. Altarian energy weapons were connected to human targeting systems. Hive collective swarm tactics were enhanced with silicon architect construction capabilities. Species that had never trusted each other began sharing their most advanced technologies in real time. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The combined technologies created weapon systems and defensive capabilities that none of the individual species could have imagined. Void Hunter ships that had been adapting to separate attack patterns found themselves facing completely new forms of warfare. Lieutenant Nick Turner, commanding the stealth destroyer Phantom, managed to penetrate deep into the Void Hunter formation using a combination of human, stealth technology, and Altarian phase shifting. His ship delivered a devastating attack directly into the enemy command structure. "Admiral, their coordination is breaking down," Nick reported. The combined attack patterns are overwhelming their adaptive systems. But the real breakthrough came when Commander Diana Brooks reached the final temple, flying the experimental fighter Valkyrie through a maze of Void Hunter defenses. She delivered the Zephyrian activation device to its destination. Temple activation. "Successful," Diana announced over the communication system. "It's the barriers forming." Across the galaxy, ancient Zephyrian temples that had been dormant for 50,000 years came to life. Energy beams stretched between star systems, creating a network of power that began to push the Void Hunters back toward the edge of the galaxy. But the barrier alone was not enough. The Void Hunters fought desperately against the growing energy field, and their main fleet still outnumbered the Allied forces. That was when Tony Richards made the choice that fulfilled the prophecy. "All ships, link your systems directly with the temple network," he ordered. "Every species, every technology, everything we have, we're going to become part of the barrier itself." The idea was impossible by every known law of physics and engineering. But humanity had spent the entire war doing impossible things. And their alien allies had learned to trust human instincts. One by one, ships from across the galaxy connected their power systems to the Zephyrian network. The energy barrier grew stronger as it absorbed not just their technology, but something deeper. The hope and determination of billions of beings flowed through the ancient temple system. The Void Hunters found themselves fighting not just a fleet, but the combined will of an entire galaxy that refused to die. Their adaptive systems, designed to counter technology and tactics, could not adapt to the pure force of unified hope. The barrier expanded outward, pushing the mechanical entities back into the void between galaxies. As they retreated, their harvested matter and energy was released, restoring the star systems they had consumed. "The Void Hunters are withdrawing beyond the galactic edge," Susan Hayes reported. "The barrier is holding them out." Tony Richards looked around his bridge at the crew members from 6 different species who had worked together to achieve the impossible. Through the viewport, he could see ships from across the galaxy celebrating their victory. Dr. Amanda Foster's voice came over the communication system, reading from the final lines of the Zephyrian prophecy. "When all seems lost, and darkness covers the stars, the children of Terra shall light the way, not through conquest, but through unity. Not through strength alone, but through hope shared among all who live." The prophecy had whispered one name: humanity. But its true message had been about what humanity could inspire others to become. Together, united by hope and determination, the galaxy had found the strength to survive in the ancient temples scattered across 1,000 worlds. The Zephyrian crystals pulsed with gentle light, standing guard against the darkness that waited beyond the stars. And among those guardians flew the ships of a galaxy that had learned the greatest lesson of all, that no enemy, no matter how powerful, could defeat the combined will of all life working as one. The war was over. but the unity it had forged would last forever.